Elijah Brooks stumbles on Crestwood's bustling Main Street, blood dripping from his split lip, as a crowd gasps. Deputy Chief Leonard Travis, red-faced, swings again, snarling racial slurs, unaware Elijah is the new sheriff. Moments earlier, Elijah's quiet coffee run turned violent when Travis targeted him for his skin. Elijah, battered but calm, dials the mayor. Travis's badge is stripped by dusk, his humiliation broadcast live. Yet, as Elijah limps home, a shadow watches, and his phone buzzes with a threat. You'll pay. What war awaits Elijah in Crestwoods? Dark Heart? Before diving into this tale, share where you're watching from, and if you stand for justice, hit like and subscribe, because tomorrow's episode will unravel secrets you won't want to miss. Elijah Brooks winced as he adjusted the ice pack against his swollen jaw, the sheriff's office dimly lit by a flickering bulb. His first day in Crestwood's top law enforcement role was meant to signal change, but the bruises from Deputy Chief Leonard Travis's fists told a different story. Main Street's chaos lingered in his mind, the crowd's gasps mingling with Travis's vile slurs. Elijah's call to Mayor Helen Carver had stripped Travis of his badge, the news spreading like wildfire across Crestwood's 50,000 souls. Television screens replayed the deputy chief's downfall, his red-faced rage captured in high definition, a public shaming that felt like justice. Yet as Elijah scanned reports on his desk, unease gnawed at him. The mayor's voice had trembled. During their call, her praise for Elijah's restraint sounding rehearsed. She stood before City Hall that morning, her suit crisp, declaring Elijah a hero for exposing corruption. Her words echoed on social media, fueling hope among Crestwood's black community, who saw Elijah as their champion. But the police union's response chilled him. Anonymous posts on local forums branded Elijah a troublemaker, a thug in a badge who framed an innocent cop. The lies spread faster than the truth, each comment a dagger twisting in Elijah's resolve. He rubbed his temples, the pain sharper than his bruises. His late wife, Marissa, had dreamed of a Crestwood where their community thrived, free from fear. Elijah had taken this job for her, for their future. Now, doubt crept in. Could he reform a town so steeped in hate? By noon, Elijah's phone buzzed, with alerts. A viral video of the Main Street attack surfaced, shot from a bystander's phone, showing Travis's fists slamming into Elijah's face, the slurs clear as day. The footage sparked protests outside the police station, with signs demanding justice for black residents long targeted by Travis's cruelty. Elijah watched from his window, heart swelling as young voices chanted his name. He vowed to act, to prove Marissa's dream wasn't a fantasy. That evening, Elijah returned to his modest home on Oak Street, a fixer-upper he'd bought to stay close to Crestwood's black neighborhood. He froze at the sight before him. His front door was defaced, racial slurs carved into the wood, jagged and deep, the paint splattered with red like blood. Glass from a shattered window littered the porch, glinting under the streetlight. Elijah's pulse raced, his military training kicking in. He scanned the shadows, but the culprits were gone. Inside, his living room was trashed, photos of Marissa torn from frames, her smile defaced with hateful words. Elijah's fists clenched, rage battling fear. This wasn't random. Travis's shadow loomed, his influence undimmed by disgrace. Elijah called his sister, Tanya, urging her to check on her daughter, Maya, at their home across town. Tanya's voice shook, promising to lock the doors. Elijah filed a report, but the responding officers, Travis's former colleagues, smirked as they took notes, their eyes cold. The next morning, Elijah dug into Travis's personnel file, locked in a dusty cabinet the department had forgotten to share. Page after page detailed complaints. Black teenagers roughed up without cause, families harassed during traffic stops, arrests built on flimsy lies. Travis had skated by for decades, protected by a system that valued his badge over his victims. Pain. Elijah's jaw tightened. He cross-referenced names, finding patterns linking Travis's brutality to Crestwood's gentrification push. Black families were being driven out, their homes razed for luxury condos. Travis wasn't just a rogue cop. He was a cog in a machine profiting from black suffering. Elijah's resolve hardened. He drafted orders to suspend 2 of Travis's loyal officers, Detectives Malone and Pierce, whose names appeared in the worst complaints. The paperwork felt like a victory, a step toward dismantling the rot. He signed the orders, imagining Marissa's proud nod. The suspensions hit the news by lunch, with reporters praising Elijah's bold move. For a moment he believed he was gaining ground, that Crestwood could change. That illusion shattered at dusk. Elijah attended a town hall hoping to rally support. The community center buzzed with 500 residents, black and white, their faces a mix of hope and skepticism. Elijah spoke of reform, of a police force. That served all. Some clapped, but whispers grew as a group of white men in the back, Travis's allies, heckled. Their leader, a burly man with a crew cut, stood, his voice booming. He called Elijah a liar, a danger to Crestwood, accusing him of framing Travis to seize power. The crowd stirred, tension crackling. Elijah countered, citing Travis's record, but the man's words ignited fear. By the end, half the room chanted for Elijah's resignation, their shouts drowning his plea. He left the hall, shoulders heavy, the weight of betrayal pressing down. As Elijah drove home, his radio crackled with a call from dispatch. His heart sank. Fire trucks wailed in the distance, their sirens slicing the night. He floored the gas, arriving at his street to find his car engulfed in flames, the inferno licking the sky. The blaze cast eerie shadows, illuminating a crowd of onlookers, some filming, others shouting. Firefighters battled the flames, but the car was a charred husk. Elijah's breath caught as he spotted a note tucked under his windshield wiper, untouched by the fire. In scrawled letters it read, "Resign or burn." His eyes scanned the crowd, landing on a familiar face, the crew-cut man from the town hall, smirking in the flickering light. Elijah's blood boiled, but he stood tall, refusing to break. Travis wasn't done, the war had just begun. Elijah Brooks hunched over a cracked wooden table in Crestwood's sheriff's office, the air heavy with the scent of old coffee and dust. His eyes burned from sleepless nights, the memory of his torched car and the scrawled threat, "Resign" or "Burn," searing his mind. The racial slurs carved into his door lingered like a wound, but Elijah refused to bend. Leonard Travis's shadow stretched far beyond his lost badge, his influence a poison in Crestwood's veins. The personnel file Elijah had unearthed revealed a monster. Decades of brutality against black residents, swept under the rug by a complicit system. Each complaint fueled Elijah's resolve, Marissa's voice echoing in his heart, urging him to fight for their community. He needed evidence, something undeniable to bury Travis and his allies. Elijah started with the victims, driving through Crestwood's black neighborhood, where modest homes stood defiant against encroaching gentrification. At a small barbershop, he met Jamal Tate, a 60-year-old mechanic whose son was beaten by Travis for loitering at 16. Jamal's eyes glistened as he recounted the hospital bills, the dropped charges, the silence from City Hall. Next, Elijah visited Keisha Monroe, a 35-year-old nurse whose brother was arrested on fabricated drug charges. His life derailed. Their stories, raw and unfiltered, wove a tapestry of pain, each thread tied to Travis's cruelty. Elijah listened, his notepad filling with names, dates, and outrage. Their trust was a fragile gift, one he swore to honor. Back at the station, resistance met him like a brick wall. The police department's records clerk, a wiry man with shifty eyes, claimed Travis's case files were misplaced. Elijah's requests for body cam footage were ignored, emails unanswered. His deputy, Marcus Reed, a 28-year-old black officer with a quick smile, reported harassment off duty, his car tailed by unmarked vehicles. Elijah's stomach churned. The department wasn't just protecting Travis, it was a fortress of loyalty to him. Marcus, undeterred, slipped Elijah a tip about a retired cop, Walter Gaines, who might talk. Elijah tracked Walter to a run-down diner. On the town's edge, its neon sign buzzing faintly. Walter, grizzled and 62, nursed a coffee, his hands trembling. After a tense silence, he admitted witnessing Travis falsify arrests, planting evidence on black teens to clear streets for developers. Walter's voice cracked as he described a 19-year-old kid, framed and jailed, his family evicted soon after. Elijah's pulse quickened. This was it, a witness who could tie Travis to the gentrification scheme. Walter agreed to testify, his statement recorded on Elijah's phone, a digital lifeline to justice. Elijah stored the recording and Walter's written affidavit in a locked drawer in his office, a steel box he checked twice before leaving. He felt a surge of hope, the first in days. With Walter's testimony, he could expose Travis's network, maybe even force the mayor to act. The weight of the town hall mob, the fire's heat, seemed to lift. Elijah imagined Marissa's proud smile, her belief in him validated. That hope crumbled by dawn. Elijah arrived at the station to find his office in chaos, papers strewn across. The floor, the locked drawer pried open. The affidavit and phone were gone, the recording erased. His breath caught, rage battling despair. Someone had betrayed him, someone with access. He questioned the night staff, but their shrugs and averted gazes offered no answers. Hours later, a news alert pinged his phone. Walter Gaines, the retired cop, had been arrested for stealing department property, his credibility shattered. The charges were flimsy, a clear setup, but the damage was done. Walter's wife called Elijah, sobbing, saying police had raided their home, planting stolen radios. Elijah's fists clenched, his knuckles whitening. Travis hadn't just stolen evidence. He'd dismantled a man's life to silence him. The station buzzed with smirks from officers loyal to Travis, their whispers cutting like blades. Elijah stormed to his desk, searching for any trace of the thief. Tucked beneath a stack of reports was a folded note, its edges crisp. In block letters it read, "Leave or die." Elijah's blood ran cold. The note wasn't just a threat. It was a promise echoing the fire's warning, but sharper, more personal. He scanned the room, eyes locking on the janitor, a quiet man who'd lingered near his office last night. The man avoided Elijah's gaze, slipping out the back door. Elijah followed, but the janitor vanished into Crestwood's morning fog. Back at his desk, Elijah replayed the week's events, the vandalism, the mob, the fire. Travis was no lone wolf, he was a conductor, orchestrating Crestwood's hate to crush Elijah's fight. The gentrification scheme loomed larger, a web of developers, cops, and city officials profiting from black displacement. Elijah's resolve hardened. He'd lost Walter's testimony, but he wouldn't lose the war. Marissa's dream, their community survival, demanded more. He grabbed his coat, determined to find new evidence, to expose the machine Travis served. But as he stepped outside, the weight of the note pressed against him. Who had Travis bribed to betray him? If you're raging at this injustice, comment number 1 if you believe Elijah deserves justice. Hit like and subscribe to join the fight, because this story's next twist will shake Crestwood to its core. What new betrayal awaits? Elijah as he digs deeper into Travis's web. Elijah Brooks stood on a makeshift stage in Crestwood's community park, the late afternoon sun, casting long shadows across a crowd of 300 black residents. Their faces, etched with resolve and weariness, mirrored his own. The sting of the stolen evidence, Walter Gaines's framed arrest and the chilling note, "Leave or die," burned in Elijah's chest, but he channeled that fire into his voice. He spoke of the gentrification scheme tied to Leonard Travis, the disgraced deputy chief, whose brutality had scarred their neighborhood. Crestwood's black families were being pushed out, their homes replaced by gleaming condos for outsiders. Elijah called for a protest march to City Hall, demanding an end to the land grabs. The crowd roared, fists raised, their chants echoing through the park's oak trees. Elijah's heart swelled, Marissa's dream of a united community flickering to life. The march set for dawn gained traction, flyers plastered across Crestwood's barbershops and churches. Local news picked up the story, a rare spotlight on the town's black voices. Elijah felt a spark of momentum, a chance to turn Travis's defeat into lasting change. That spark dimmed when he returned to his sheriff's office. A routine sweep for leaks revealed a glint in the ceiling vent, a tiny camera no bigger than a quarter, its lens trained on his desk. Elijah's stomach twisted. Someone had been watching, likely since the day he took office. He traced the camera's signal to an off-site server, inaccessible without a warrant. The janitor's face flashed in his mind, the man who'd slipped, away after the evidence theft. Travis's reach was a suffocating web, his eyes everywhere. Elijah reported the camera to Mayor Helen Carver, expecting outrage. Her response was tepid, a promise to look into it delivered with a tight smile. Elijah's unease grew. The mayor's support felt like a house of cards, ready to collapse under Travis's influence. The next blow came swiftly. Elijah's sister, Tanya, called in tears, her voice trembling. She'd been fired from her nursing job at Crestwood General Hospital, accused of stealing medication, a lie so blatant it reeked of sabotage. Tanya, a single mother to 12-year-old Maya, had worked there for 15 years, her record spotless. Elijah drove to her small home on Pine Avenue, finding her packing groceries into a bare fridge, Maya coloring quietly nearby. Tanya's eyes were red, her pride shattered. Elijah's jaw clenched. This wasn't random, it was retaliation, Travis striking at his family. He dug into the hospital's board, cross-referencing names with the gentrification scheme from Travis's personnel file. A pattern emerged. The board's chairman, Victor Langston, owned stakes in the condo developments, his wealth tied to the same developers Travis had protected. Elijah marched into the hospital's boardroom the next morning, his sheriff's badge gleaming under fluorescent lights. 7 board members stared, their faces a mix of surprise and disdain. Elijah laid out Langston's conflict of interest, citing property records and Travis's brutality complaints. He demanded Tanya's reinstatement, his voice steady but laced with fury. Langston, a silver-haired man with a politician's grin, feigned ignorance, but his eyes betrayed panic. The board promised to review Tanya's case, a concession Elijah took as a win. He left the room, shoulders squared, believing he'd cracked Travis's armor. That belief was a mirage. By evening, Elijah's phone lit up with notifications. A video had surfaced on Crestwood's local news site, shared across social media like a plague. It showed Elijah in his office, accepting a thick envelope from a shadowed figure, his voice dubbed to say, "This stays between us." The footage was doctored, a clumsy deepfake, but the damage was instant. Headlines screamed corruption, painting Elijah as a crooked sheriff exploiting his badge. The video's release was surgical, timed to drown out the protest's momentum. Elijah's blood boiled, his hands shaking as he rewatched the lie. Travis had struck again, not with fists, but with a weapon sharper, public perception. The mayor called her tone icy, urging Elijah to address the allegations. Protesters wavered, some canceling the march, their trust in Elijah fraying. Elijah traced the video's source to an anonymous server, likely the same one linked to the camera. He worked through the night, combing server logs, but found no trace of the culprit. The janitor's smirk haunted him, a ghost of Travis's. Cunning? Elijah drove to Tanya's house at midnight, needing to warn her of the smear. The street was eerily quiet, the air thick with an acrid smell. As he approached, his heart stopped. Tanya's house was a smoldering ruin, flames licking. The shattered windows, the roof caved in. Firefighters battled the blaze, their hoses hissing against the inferno. Tanya and Maya stood across the street, wrapped in blankets, their faces pale with shock. Elijah ran to them, pulling them close, his voice hoarse as he asked if they were hurt. Tanya shook her head, tears streaming, whispering that they'd escaped just in time. A firefighter handed Elijah a singed photo found in the rubble. It was Maya, her school picture, a red target drawn over her face in marker. Elijah's knees buckled, rage and fear colliding. The fire wasn't an accident. It was a message. Travis's retaliation escalated to a new level of cruelty. Neighbors whispered, some filming the wreckage, others offering shelter. Elijah scanned the crowd, searching for the janitor, the crew-cut man from the town hall, anyone tied to Travis. No faces stood out, but the weight of their stares pressed against him. Tanya's voice broke through, asking where they'd go now. Elijah had no answer, only a vow to protect them. He filed a report with the fire chief, but the responding officer, one of Travis's loyalists, scribbled notes with a smirk, dismissing arson as unlikely. Elijah's fists clenched, his badge feeling heavier than ever. The doctored video had turned Crestwood against him. The fire had taken Tanya's home, and the targeted photo promised more. Travis wasn't just fighting to save himself. He was waging a war to destroy Elijah's life. Elijah drove Tanya and Maya to a motel, his mind racing. The gentrification scheme, the camera, the board, the fire, all threads in a tapestry of corruption. He needed to expose Langston's ties, to rally the community again. But the photo of Maya, her innocent smile marred by a target, seared his resolve. Travis had crossed a line, and Elijah would answer. The protest was still on, dawn approaching. He'd march, not just for justice, but for survival. Elijah Brooks gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles taut as he navigated Crestwood's rain-slicked streets, the motel's neon sign fading in his rearview mirror. Tanya and Maya were safe for now, tucked away after the firebombing that reduced their home to ash, Maya's school photo with its red target still haunting Elijah's dreams. The doctored video accusing him of bribery had fractured the town's trust, its lies spreading like venom across Crestwood's social media. Leonard Travis's shadow loomed larger, his reach choking Elijah's fight for justice. The protest march, once a beacon of hope, teetered on collapse, with organizers spooked by the smear. Elijah's chest tightened, Marissa's vision of a united community slipping through his fingers. Yet he refused to break. Travis's gentrification scheme, tied to developers like Victor Langston, was more than a land grab. It was a war on Crestwood's black soul, and Elijah was its last line of defense. His deputy, Marcus Reed, had been his rock, a 28-year-old officer whose quick wit masked a fire for change. But that morning, Marcus's eyes darted, his voice clipped as he handed Elijah a report. The document, a leaked memo, detailed Elijah's plans to investigate Langston's hospital board. Names and dates splashed across a local blog before Elijah could act. Marcus stammered, claiming a hacker, but Elijah's gut screamed betrayal. Marcus, pressured by Travis's allies in the department, had caved, feeding Elijah's strategy to the enemy. The sting of this treachery cut deeper than the fires. Heat. Marcus's loyalty a casualty of Crestwood's corrupt machine. Elijah swallowed his anger, knowing division would only empower Travis. He shifted focus, organizing a voter registration drive to counter Travis's voter suppression, a tactic buried in the stolen evidence from Walter Gaines. Crestwood's black residents, targeted by purged rolls and rigged polls, deserved a voice. Elijah set up tables outside the community center, rallying 200 volunteers under a gray sky. Their energy was electric, pens scratching as families registered, their smiles defiant against the rain. Local news covered the drive, a rare win amplifying Elijah's cause. He felt a flicker of triumph, believing he could rebuild trust and expose Travis's election rigging. That hope led him to Sarah Ellis, a 40-year-old city clerk with a nervous tick and a conscience. Elijah met her in a cramped coffee shop, its windows fogged from the drizzle. Sarah, after glancing over her shoulder, confirmed Travis's role in falsifying voter records, deleting black names to secure council seats for his allies. She handed Elijah a USB drive with audit logs, her hands shaking. Elijah's pulse raced. This was the leverage he needed, proof to tie Travis to the developers and their political puppets. He thanked Sarah, promising protection, and stored the USB in a hidden safe at the motel, its lock clicking with a satisfying thud. For the first time since the firebombing, Elijah sensed victory, a chance to turn the tide. That sense was a cruel illusion. Hours later, Elijah's phone buzzed with a call from Tanya, her voice frantic. His nephew, Jamal, a 17-year-old, high school senior, had been arrested for robbing a convenience store. Elijah sped to the police station, his heart pounding. Jamal, a quiet kid with dreams of college, sat in a holding cell, his eyes wide with fear. The evidence was damning. Security footage showing a masked figure, Jamal's hoodie found nearby planted with stolen cash. Elijah's blood boiled. The setup was Travis's handiwork, a surgical strike to hit Elijah where it hurt. He worked, through the night, pulling strings with a sympathetic judge to review the footage. By dawn, Elijah proved the hoodie was planted, the timestamps doctored, and Jamal was released. Elijah hugged him, vowing to keep him safe, but the damage lingered. Jamal's classmates whispered, his reputation tarnished. Elijah drove back to the motel, exhaustion clawing at him, only to face another blow. A news broadcast aired. Sarah Ellis standing before City Hall, her face pale. She recanted her testimony, claiming Elijah had coerced her, offering bribes for false evidence. The USB's data, she said, was fabricated. Elijah's jaw dropped, betrayal piling on betrayal. Sarah's eyes avoided the camera, her words rehearsed, likely forced by Travis's threats. The voter drive faltered, volunteers dropping out, their faith in Elijah shaken. Crestwood's black community, already battered, felt the sting of another lie. Elijah checked the safe. The USB was untouched, but its value was gutted. He replayed Sarah's words, searching for a clue, but found only Travis's cunning. The rally Elijah had planned to cap the voter drive loomed that evening, a last chance to rally support. He arrived at the community center, 500 residents. Gathered, their signs soggy but raised. Elijah spoke, his voice raw, urging unity against Travis's machine. The crowd cheered, but the air shifted, a murmur growing at the edges. A group of masked men, hired agitators sent by Travis, surged forward, wielding bats and bottles. Glass shattered, screams pierced the dusk, and chaos erupted. Elijah shoved through the crowd, shielding a young girl as a bottle sailed past. Police, slow to respond, stood back, their smirks mirroring those from the firebombing. The rally dissolved into violence, news cameras capturing Elijah at the center, framed as the instigator. By nightfall, the headlines screamed failure, Elijah's name tied to the riot. He limped to his truck, bruised and battered, the weight of Crestwood's hate crushing him. Travis had turned his rally into a trap, his agitators a masterstroke of sabotage. Elijah's phone buzzed with texts from supporters, some vowing to fight, others blaming him for the chaos. Tanya called, Maya sobbing in the background, asking if they'd ever be safe. Elijah had no answer, only a burning need to strike back. The USB, though discredited, still held truth. He'd find a way to use it, to expose Travis's election fraud. But the rally's violence, Sarah's betrayal, and Jamal's framing were wounds that bled deep. Travis wasn't just winning, he was rewriting Elijah's story. If you're shaken by this betrayal, comment number 1 if you think Elijah can still fight back. Hit like and subscribe to see justice unfold, because Crestwood's next chapter will test his soul. How will Elijah survive when Travis's next strike aims to break him completely? Elijah Brooks slipped through Crestwood's back alleys, the midnight rain soaking his hoodie, his breath shallow to avoid detection. The rally's chaos, with Travis's masked agitators shattering glass and hope, had left Elijah a pariah, blamed for the violence that tore his voter drive apart. Sarah Ellis's recantation and Jamal's framed arrest were fresh wounds, proof of Leonard Travis's unrelenting grip on Crestwood. Tanya and Maya, hidden in a motel, were all Elijah had left, their safety a fragile thread. The USB drive, discredited, but intact, was his last weapon. But its data needed decoding to expose Travis's election fraud. Elijah couldn't trust the police department, not after Marcus's betrayal, not with Travis's allies watching. He went underground, abandoning his sheriff's badge for shadows, his military training guiding each step. A contact, an old army buddy, pointed him to a hacker named Riley Voss, a 30-year-old recluse who could crack the USB's encrypted logs. Elijah tracked Riley to a derelict warehouse on Crestwood's outskirts, its rusted walls groaning under the storm. Inside, Riley, wiry with a tangle of dreadlocks, eyed Elijah warily, their laptop casting a blue glow. Elijah handed over the USB, explaining Travis's voter suppression, the purged black names, the rigged council seats. Riley's fingers danced across the keys, pulling up partial data, spreadsheets linking Travis to a state senator, Claire Dunham, who funneled campaign funds to developers. Elijah's pulse surged. This was a lifeline, a thread to unravel Travis's machine. Riley needed 12 hours to decrypt the rest, so Elijah holed up in a safe house, a crumbling apartment rented under a false name. The room reeked of mildew, its single window boarded shut. Elijah paced. The USB's promised battling memories of Maya's targeted photo, Tanya's smoldering home. He checked his burner phone, texting Tanya to confirm her safety. Her reply was curt, fear lacing each word. Elijah's hope clung to Riley's skills, to the data that could vindicate him. That hope was a flickering candle, snuffed out by betrayal. At 3 in the morning, Elijah's phone buzzed with an alert from a motion sensor he'd rigged at the safe house door. His heart sank. Someone had found him. He grabbed a knife, the only weapon he trusted, and peered through a crack in the boarded window. Shadows moved outside, silent and deliberate. The leak could only have come from Riley, or a tail Elijah hadn't spotted. He cursed himself for trusting too easily, Marcus's face flashing in his mind. Before he could bolt, the door exploded. Inward, splinters flying as 3 mercenaries in black tactical gear stormed in. Elijah dove behind a couch, the knife useless against their rifles. Gunfire erupted, bullets chewing through plaster, the air thick with dust. Elijah crawled to a back window, prying the boards loose, his hands slick with sweat. He glimpsed Riley's laptop left on a table, its screen flashing with the partial data. The mercenaries advanced, their boots crunching glass. Elijah lunged, grabbing the laptop, and hurled himself through the window, landing hard on a fire escape. Pain shot through his ribs, a crack signaling a fracture. He stumbled down the rusted stairs, the mercenaries' shouts echoing behind. The rain-slicked alley offered no cover, but Elijah sprinted, clutching the laptop, his lungs burning. The mercenaries fired, a bullet grazing his shoulder, blood seeping through his hoodie. He ducked into a drainage ditch, the icy water numbing his wounds. The mercenaries' flashlights swept the night, but Elijah stayed low, crawling through mud until their voices faded. He emerged in a vacant lot, shivering, the laptop miraculously intact. Gasping, Elijah powered it on, finding Riley's partial data still loaded, the senator's name glaring. But the USB's full decryption was lost in the ambush, Riley's fate unknown. Elijah's injuries throbbed, each breath a knife in his side, but he pushed on, driven by Marissa's memory, by the Black family's Travis had crushed. He remembered a backup drive Riley had mentioned, hidden in a locker at Crestwood's old bus depot. Elijah limped through the storm, the depot's sagging roof barely shielding him from the rain. The locker, rusted but intact, held a small drive, its files a mirror of the USB's partial data. Elijah pocketed it, relief fleeting. As he stepped outside, his burner phone rang, Tanya's number flashing. Her voice was a sob, broken by static. She'd been arrested, charged with aiding a fugitive, Elijah's own name weaponized against her. The call cut off, leaving Elijah frozen, the rain masking his tears. Crestwood's police, Travis's loyalists, had struck again, their timing too precise. The safe house leak wasn't random. Travis knew every move. Elijah's shoulder bled, his ribs screamed, but Tanya's arrest was a deeper wound. Maya was alone, vulnerable, the motel no longer safe. Elijah clutched the backup drive, its weight a reminder of the fight. Travis's mercenaries had failed to kill him, but they'd taken his sister, his last anchor. The senator's name, Dunham, burned in his mind, a clue to Travis's broader network. Elijah needed a new plan, a way to protect Maya and free Tanya. The bus depot's shadows offered no answers, only the relentless drum of rain. Crestwood's black community was fracturing, the rally's failure a scar, Jamal's framing a warning. Elijah's badge, once a symbol of hope, felt like a target. He moved toward a payphone, his steps unsteady, to call an old friend for help. Travis's machine was closing in, each attack more vicious, each betrayal a blade. Elijah's fight wasn't just for justice, it was for survival, for the family Travis sought to destroy. The backup drive was a spark, but Crestwood's darkness threatened to smother it. Elijah's resolve hardened, his pain a fuel. He'd find Riley, expose Dunham and break Travis's grip or die trying. Elijah Brooks crouched in a cluttered basement, the air thick with the tang of damp concrete, his shoulder wound throbbing beneath a makeshift bandage. Crestwood's alleys had swallowed him after the mercenary ambush, Tanya's arrest for aiding. A fugitive, a fresh scar on his soul. The backup drive, salvaged from the bus depot, was Elijah's last hope, its partial data linking Leonard Travis to Senator Claire Dunham's corrupt campaign. Maya, hidden with a trusted neighbor, was safe for now, but Elijah's ribs ached with every breath, a reminder of how close Travis's men had come to ending him. The safe house's betrayal, Riley's unknown fate, and Marcus's treachery weighed heavy, but Marissa's dream of justice burned brighter. Elijah needed to expose Travis's voter suppression, to give Crestwood's black community a voice stolen by rigged elections. He contacted Lena Harper, a 45-year-old civil rights lawyer with a steel spine and a history of battling corrupt systems. Lena met Elijah in the basement, her briefcase stuffed with legal pads, her eyes sharp despite the late hour. Elijah handed her the drive, explaining the spreadsheets, Dunham's name, and Travis's role in purging black voters. Lena's jaw tightened, recognizing the senator's influence in Ohio's political machine. She proposed leaking the data to a national outlet, The Beacon, known for fearless reporting. Elijah hesitated, the memory of Sarah Ellis's coerced recantation stinging, but Lena's conviction swayed him. They uploaded the files through an encrypted server, the data hitting the Beacon's desk by dawn. The story broke at noon. Headlines screaming corruption, Travis's name plastered across every screen. Crestwood erupted, protests swelling outside City Hall, 1,000 voices chanting for justice. Elijah watched from a borrowed laptop, his heart pounding as signs bore his name, a flicker of hope in the darkness. The protests grew, spilling into Crestwood's streets. Black residents joined by allies, their march a defiant pulse against Travis's machine. Elijah believed he was turning the tide, the data's truth a weapon Travis couldn't dodge. Lena filed motions to free Tanya, citing her unlawful arrest, and a judge agreed to a hearing. Elijah's chest loosened, the prospect of his sister's release a lifeline. He met Lena at a diner, planning a press conference to amplify the leak, to demand accountability for Dunham and Travis. For the first time since the firebombing, Elijah felt the scales tipping, Marissa's dream within reach. That hope was a house built on sand. By evening, Elijah's phone lit up with alerts. A video swept Crestwood's local channels, shared relentlessly online. It showed Elijah outside the community center, his voice distorted, shouting plans to incite a riot, his face twisted in rage. The deepfake was seamless, far slicker than the bribery video, its lies convincing even to Elijah's allies. The footage painted him as a violent extremist, the rally's chaos now his fault. Protesters faltered, some turning against him, their signs lowered. Elijah's stomach churned, Travis's cunning a blade in his gut. The deepfake wasn't just a smear, it was a public execution of his credibility. Lena called, her voice strained. The Ohio Bar Association had disbarred her, citing fabricated ethics violations, a clear retaliation from Travis's allies. The hearing for Tanya was postponed, the judge suddenly unavailable. Elijah's fists clenched, his cracked ribs protesting. Travis had struck at his strongest ally, dismantling Lena's career with surgical precision. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed, casting harsh shadows as Elijah processed the loss. Lena vowed to fight, but her eyes betrayed defeat, her briefcase now a relic. The protests, once a roar, dwindled to whispers, Crestwood's hope fading with them. Elijah's next blow came at midnight. A news report announced funding cuts to Crestwood High, the only school serving the black neighborhood, its budget slashed by the council under pressure from Dunham's allies. The school, already crumbling, faced closure, a direct hit to the community Elijah fought for. Parents flooded Elijah's inbox, their anger mixed with despair, blaming him for provoking the council. Elijah's throat tightened, memories of Jamal's framing, Maya's targeted photo flooding back. Travis wasn't just targeting him, he was strangling Crestwood's future. Elijah prepared for the press conference, set for noon at the community center, a last stand to reclaim the narrative. He arrived to find a crowd of 400, their faces a mix of support and skepticism. Reporters circled, cameras rolling, as Elijah spoke of the deepfake's lies, the school's cuts, and Travis's corruption. His voice was steady, fueled by Marissa's memory, by Tanya's courage. Halfway through, a roar erupted from the crowd's edge. A mob, 50 strong, surged forward, led by the crew-cut man from the town hall, their faces twisted with hate. They wielded pipes and bottles, shouting slurs, their attack orchestrated by Travis to silence Elijah. The crowd scattered, screams filling the air as glass shattered against the center's walls. Elijah shielded a reporter, his shoulder wound reopening, blood soaking his shirt. Police stood back, their radios silent, complicit in the chaos. Elijah fought through the mob, his fists bruised, reaching his truck as the center's windows caved in. He sped away, the mob's chants echoing, the press conference a smoldering failure. News reports spun the attack as Elijah's fault, the deepfake replayed endlessly, his name synonymous with violence. Elijah hid in a friend's garage, his body aching, his spirit battered. Tanya's arrest, Lena's disbarment, the school's cuts, and the mob were Travis's symphony of destruction, each note more vicious than the last. The backup drive's leak had sparked a fire, but Travis had doused it with lies. Elijah's badge, once a shield, was now a target, Crestwood's black community caught in the crossfire. He checked his phone, finding a text from Maya, her words. Simple. Don't give up. Elijah's eyes stung, her faith a spark in the dark. He needed to act, to find new evidence, to protect his family. The senator's name, Dunham, was a thread he couldn't ignore. If you're gripped by this fight, comment number 1 if you stand with Elijah against Crestwood's corruption. Hit like and subscribe to witness his next move, because the battle's about to ignite. Can Elijah rise from this chaos to strike back at Travis's heart? Elijah Brooks huddled in a friend's garage, the cold concrete floor seeping through his torn jacket, his cracked ribs pulsing with every shallow breath. Crestwood's streets echoed with the mob's slurs from the ruined press conference, their pipes and bottles shattering Elijah's hope as Travis's deepfake branded him a rioter. The school funding cuts, Lena's disbarment, and Tanya's arrest were a relentless tide, drowning Marissa's dream of justice. Maya, his 12-year-old niece, was Elijah's anchor, her text urging him not to give up a faint light in the dark. The backup drive, its partial data linking Travis to Senator Claire Dunham, was Elijah's last weapon, but it needed decoding to expose the hate group fueling Crestwood's corruption. Maya, tech-savvy beyond her years, had begged to help, her courage a mirror of Marissa's. Elijah relented, meeting her in the garage under moonlight, her backpack stuffed with a borrowed laptop. Maya's fingers flew across the keys, her brow furrowed as she cracked the drive's encryption. The screen glowed with new files, emails between Travis and a national hate group, the White Dawn Coalition, funding voter suppression to keep black voices silent. Elijah's heart raced, the data a bombshell that could topple Travis's network. He hugged Maya, her small frame trembling with pride, but fear gnawed at him. Travis's mercenaries, his poisoned lies, had already taken too much. Elijah needed a plan to weaponize the data, to end the war. He turned to his mentor, Samuel Tate, a 60-year-old retired principal who'd fought Crestwood's racism for decades. Samuel, with a voice like gravel and eyes that saw through lies, met Elijah at a shuttered library, its shelves coated in dust. Elijah shared the hate group emails, the senator's ties, and Travis's election fraud. Samuel proposed a federal sting, leveraging his old contacts in the FBI to trap Travis's allies. Elijah drafted a plan, the sting set for a secret meeting where Dunham's aides would meet White Dawn leaders. The FBI agreed, an agent named Carter promising a takedown. Elijah felt a surge of certainty, the sting a chess move to checkmate Travis. He hid the drive in a safe deposit box, its key tucked in his boot, believing he was steps from victory. Maya's data, Samuel's wisdom, and the FBI's muscle were a trifecta Travis couldn't outrun. That belief was a cruel mirage. At dawn, Elijah's burner phone rang, an unknown number breaking the silence. A distorted voice, cold as steel, spoke, "We have Maya and Jamal." Elijah's blood froze, his nephew's framed arrest flashing in his mind. The voice demanded the drive, naming a derelict factory on Crestwood's riverfront. Elijah raced to the neighbor's house, finding it empty, Maya's backpack gone, Jamal's phone dead. His knees buckled, the garage spinning. Travis had crossed a line, kidnapping his family to crush his fight. Elijah grabbed the drive, his hands shaking, and drove to the factory, its smokestacks looming like sentinels. The building's interior was a maze of rusted beams, shadows pooling in every corner. Travis's men, 6 mercenaries in black masks, waited, Maya and Jamal bound in a corner, their eyes wide with terror. Maya's lip bled, Jamal's shirt torn. Elijah's rage surged, but he held the drive aloft, his voice steady. The lead mercenary, his eyes glinting, snatched it, shoving Elijah back. He released Maya and Jamal, who ran to Elijah, their sobs muffled against his chest. The mercenaries vanished into the dark, the drive gone. Elijah thought the nightmare was over, his family safe. He was wrong. Hours later at the motel, Maya and Jamal collapsed, their skin clammy, eyes glassy. Elijah rushed them to Crestwood General, his shoulder wound bleeding through his bandage. Doctors confirmed poisoning, a toxin in their water bottles, slipped in by Travis's men during the kidnapping. The hospital's halls buzzed with chaos, Tanya's absence a fresh wound. Elijah held Maya's hand, her small fingers limp as machines beeped. Jamal groaned nearby, his college dreams fading. Elijah's throat burned, guilt and fury colliding. Travis hadn't just taken the drive, he'd poisoned his family, a sadistic twist to break Elijah's spirit. The doctors stabilized them, but recovery was uncertain, each hour a battle. Elijah's phone buzzed with a message from Samuel, urgent and cryptic. The sting had collapsed, sabotaged by an FBI mole loyal to Dunham. Agent Carter, apologetic, revealed the mole had tipped Travis, who burned the sting's evidence. A warehouse of documents torched before agents arrived. Elijah's vision blurred, the garage's cold replaced by a suffocating heat. The drive, the sting, his family's health all sacrificed for nothing. Travis's hate group ties were buried, the senator untouched, Crestwood's black community left to rot. Elijah sat by Maya's bedside, her breathing shallow, Jamal's coughs echoing. The hospital's fluorescent lights flickered, casting stark shadows. Tanya's arrest, the school's cuts, the mob's violence, all paled against this loss. Elijah's badge, once a beacon, was a shackle, chaining him to a town that despised him. He clutched the safe deposit key, its edges biting his palm. The data was gone, but Samuel's words lingered, urging one last fight. Elijah's military training kicked in, his mind mapping a new path. He'd find the mole, expose Dunham, save his family. But the poison in Maya's veins, the mole's betrayal, were Travis's cruelest strikes yet. Elijah stood, his ribs screaming, his resolve a fragile flame. Crestwood's war wasn't over, but each step felt like a march to the gallows. He kissed Maya's forehead, whispering a promise to return, and slipped into the night, the hospital's hum fading behind him. Elijah Brooks crouched in the pews of Crestwood's Mount Zion Church, the stained glass windows casting fractured colors across his bruised face. The hospital's sterile hum, Maya and Jamal's poisoned bodies, and the sabotaged FBI sting gnawed at Elijah's soul, each loss a testament to Leonard Travis's cruelty. Tanya's arrest, the school's slashed funds, and the hate group's shadow had stripped Elijah bare, leaving only a flicker of Marissa's dream to guide him. The safe, deposit key, its edges worn from his grip, was his lifeline, holding ledger backups from the stolen drive. Elijah had slipped into the church at midnight, its wooden beams creaking under a winter wind, seeking refuge among the congregation that once rallied for his voter drive. Pastor Ellis, a 70-year-old pillar with a voice like thunder, had offered sanctuary, his eyes kind but wary. Elijah set up in the church's basement, a damp space cluttered with hymnals and folding chairs, his cracked laptop humming as he decoded the ledger's files. The backups, a gift from Riley's foresight, were fragmented, but Elijah pieced them together, his fingers trembling. The screen revealed a chilling truth. Travis wasn't just rigging Crestwood's elections, he was orchestrating a statewide voter fraud scheme, purging black voters across Ohio to secure a governor's race for Senator Claire Dunham's ally. The White Dawn Coalition's funds fueled the operation, their hate seeping into every ballot box. Elijah's breath caught. The ledger a grenade that could detonate Travis's empire. He recorded a video, his voice raw, detailing the fraud, the hate group, and Dunham's complicity. The church's quiet gave him clarity, a moment to believe he could still win. Pastor Ellis brought coffee, his nod a silent vow of support, and Elijah felt a surge of resolve. The recording was his weapon, a truth Travis couldn't bury. He planned to upload it to a secure server, broadcasting it to the beacon and beyond, a final stand for Crestwood's black community. That resolve was a fragile thread, snapped by betrayal. At dawn, Elijah's laptop pinged, a security alert, flagging motion outside the church. His heart sank. A church member, Deacon Rawls, a 42-year-old with a nervous smile, had lingered too long near Elijah's setup, his phone glowing with a sent message. Elijah confronted him, but Rawls bolted, his footsteps echoing up the stairs. Elijah chased, his ribs screaming, only to find Rawls gone, the church doors swinging in the wind. The betrayal stung like Marcus's, a reminder of Travis's reach into even sacred spaces. Before Elijah could regroup, sirens wailed, a cacophony swallowing Crestwood. His phone buzzed with news alerts. Travis, leveraging his allies in city, Hall had declared martial law, citing the press conference mob as a public safety crisis. Armored vehicles rolled through Crestwood's streets, their lights slicing the dawn. Curfews locked down black neighborhoods, police checkpoints, choking every corner. Elijah's allies, the voter drive volunteers, were arrested in a midnight sweep, their homes raided, their signs confiscated. Pastor Ellis called, his voice strained, warning Elijah to flee. The church was no longer safe. Rawls's betrayal, a beacon for Travis's wrath. Elijah grabbed the laptop, the recording still encoding, and slipped into the basement's crawl space, its dirt walls claustrophobic. He uploaded the video, the server's progress bar crawling as boots thundered above. The upload completed, the recording live, its truth a flare in Crestwood's dark. Elijah believed he'd struck a blow, that the world would see Travis's crimes. That belief shattered as chaos erupted outside. A riot sparked by Travis's hired agitators tore through Crestwood Center, the same masked men from the rally now wielding torches. Shops burned, screams filled the air, and Elijah's recording vanished, deleted by hackers tied to Dunham's network. The server crashed, its data wiped. The internet cut across Crestwood by Travis's order. Elijah crawled from the basement, his laptop useless, the church's windows shattered by thrown bricks. He emerged into a war zone, vigilantes hunting. Through the smoke, their slurs a chilling echo of Travis's voice. Elijah sprinted, his shoulder wound reopening, blood staining his shirt. A vigilante, face obscured, swung a bat, grazing Elijah's arm. He dove into a storm drain, its icy water swallowing him, the riot's roar fading above. The drain's tunnel was a labyrinth, its walls slick with moss, but Elijah pushed through, emerging in a vacant lot, his body trembling. The recording was gone, the ledger's truth erased, his allies jailed. Maya and Jamal, still in the hospital, were beyond his reach, Tanya's fate unknown. Crestwood's martial law was a cage, its black residents targeted by checkpoints and raids, their voices silenced. Elijah's badge, a symbol of hope, was a curse drawing Travis's fire. The church's betrayal, Rawls's fleeing shadow, mirrored every loss from Marcus to Sarah to Lena. Elijah clutched the safe deposit key, its metal warm from his grip. The ledger's fragments were all he had, a faint hope against Travis's machine. He stumbled toward a payphone, his steps faltering, to call Samuel Tate, his mentor, for help. The riot's smoke curled skyward, a testament to Travis's power. Elijah's fight had cost everything, his family poisoned, his allies caged, his truth deleted. Yet Marissa's dream, Maya's courage, burned in his chest. He'd decode the fragments, expose the governor's race fraud, or die trying. If you're stunned by this betrayal, comment number 1 if you believe Elijah's fight can still spark change. Hit like and subscribe to see Crestwood's next reckoning, because the truth is about to ignite. What desperate move will Elijah make? As Travis tightens his grip on Crestwood, Elijah Brooks shivered in a Crestwood alley, the storm drain's icy water still clinging to his clothes, his arm bruised from a vigilante's bat. The church's betrayal, the deleted recording, and Travis's martial law had turned Crestwood into a prison, its black neighborhoods choked by checkpoints. Maya and Jamal's poisoned bodies, Tanya's arrest, and the lost Ledger backups were a relentless assault, each blow eroding Marissa's dream of justice. The safe deposit key, tucked in Elijah's boot, was his last spark, its fragments of voter fraud data a faint hope against Leonard Travis's machine. Elijah's body ached, his shoulder wound festering, but Samuel Tate's voice, urgent on a payphone call, had urged him to fight. Samuel connected Elijah to Troy Bennett, a 40-year-old rogue state trooper, disillusioned with Ohio's corrupt elite. Troy met Elijah in a shuttered gas station, its pumps rusted, his pickup truck idling under a flickering streetlight. Troy's weathered face bore scars from battles with crooked cops, his eyes sharp with defiance. Elijah shared the ledger's fragments, detailing Travis's statewide election fraud, the White Dawn Coalition's funds, and Senator Claire Dunham's role. Troy proposed smuggling Elijah to Columbus for a federal courthouse testimony, a chance to expose the governor's race rigging before a grand jury. Elijah nodded, the plan a lifeline to save Maya, Jamal, and Tanya. Troy hid Elijah in his truck's false floor, the compartment tight, the air stale. They navigated Crestwood's checkpoints, Troy's badge easing them through, though Elijah's heart pounded as police radios crackled. The 4-hour drive to Columbus was a gauntlet, each mile a gamble. They reached the courthouse at dawn, a gray monolith under a heavy sky. Troy bribed a guard, slipping Elijah into a side entrance, his sheriff's badge hidden under a borrowed coat. The grand jury chamber was stark, its wooden benches filled with stern faces. Elijah stood, his voice steady despite his injuries, recounting Travis's voter suppression, Dunham's campaign funds, and the hate group's shadow. He cited the Ledger's data, his words streaming live on a legal advocacy site, shared by activists across Ohio. The testimony went viral, clips flooding social media, Crestwood's black community rallying online, their hashtags a digital roar. Elijah's chest swelled, Marissa's dream flickering to life. The jury's questions were sharp, their nods encouraging, and Elijah believed justice was near, Travis's empire on the brink. That belief was a trap. As Elijah finished, a low rumble shook the chamber, the air thickening with dust. His military training kicked in, his eyes darting to the exits. A second blast roared, the courthouse's south wing collapsing in a storm of concrete and flame. Screams filled the hall, jurors scrambling as smoke choked the air. Elijah grabbed Troy, pulling him toward a stairwell, but the trooper shoved him forward, shouting to run. Another explosion rocked the building, a steel beam crashing down, pinning Troy beneath it. Elijah lunged to free him, his hands bloody, but Troy's eyes glazed, his breath stopping. Elijah's throat burned, grief and rage colliding, but the smoke forced him back. He stumbled through a shattered window, landing in an alley, his ribs screaming, his shoulder wound torn open. The courthouse burned, sirens wailing as firefighters battled the inferno. News vans swarmed, cameras capturing the chaos, but Elijah's testimony was buried under headlines of terrorism. A broadcast orchestrated by Travis claimed Elijah had rigged the explosives, a rogue sheriff turned bomber. The lie was seamless, Travis's allies in Columbus spinning the blast as Elijah's desperate act, Troy's death, a sacrifice. To save him was twisted into proof of Elijah's guilt. Elijah limped through Columbus's back streets, his coat torn, his face smeared with ash. He checked his phone, finding messages from Samuel warning of a manhunt. Crestwood's martial law had spread, Ohio's governor declaring Elijah a fugitive. The viral testimony, once a beacon, was drowned by the terrorism narrative, activists, silenced by fear. Elijah's heart sank, Maya and Jamal's hospital beds flashing in his mind, Tanya's cell a distant ache. The safe deposit key, still in his boot, was useless without the Ledger's full data. Travis's explosives had not just destroyed the courthouse, they'd obliterated Elijah's credibility. His fight reduced to ashes. He ducked into a vacant warehouse, its windows boarded, the air heavy with oil and rust. His injuries throbbed, each step a battle, but Troy's sacrifice fueled him. Elijah replayed the blast, the beam's fall, Travis's cunning. The explosives weren't random, they were a calculated strike, planned with inside knowledge of the testimony. The FBI mole from the sting lingered in Elijah's mind, a ghost of betrayal. He needed evidence, a way to clear his name, to protect his family. Samuel's last message mentioned a contact in Columbus, a journalist who could help. Elijah moved toward a payphone, his vision blurring, the city's lights a haze. Crestwood's war had followed him, Travis's machine tightening its grip. The black community's digital rally was fading, their voices muted by the governor's decree. Elijah's badge, once a shield, was a noose, drawing Travis's fire. He clutched the key, its metal a reminder of the fight. Travis had won this round, but Elijah's resolve burned, a vow to save Maya, free Tanya, and honor Troy. The warehouse's shadows offered no refuge, only a fleeting pause before the next battle. Elijah Brooks sat on a cold steel bunk in Columbus's county jail, the cell's gray walls closing in, his shoulder wound festering beneath a crude bandage. The courthouse explosion, Troy Bennett's death under a fallen beam, and Elijah's arrest as a framed bomber had shattered his fight, leaving Crestwood's black community defenseless against Leonard Travis's machine. Maya and Jamal's poisoned bodies, Tanya's imprisonment, and the lost testimony were a relentless storm, eroding Marissa's dream of justice. The safe deposit key, hidden in Elijah's sock, was a faint pulse, its ledger fragments useless without a voice. Martial law gripped Crestwood, its checkpoint strangling hope, but Elijah's resolve flickered, fueled by Troy's sacrifice. A guard, Jamal Carter, a 32-year-old black man with a quiet demeanor, slipped Elijah a burner phone during a late-night shift, his eyes betraying sympathy. Jamal whispered of his own run-ins with Travis's allies, their slurs a constant shadow. Elijah trusted him, a risk born of desperation, and used the phone to contact Samuel Tate. Samuel, holed up in a Columbus safe house, suggested a new recording, a direct appeal to expose Travis's prison connections, the White Dawn Coalition's funds, and Senator Claire Dunham's fraud. Elijah recorded in the cell's dim light, his voice, hoarse but firm, detailing the courthouse blast, the FBI mole, and Travis's hate-driven empire. He sent the file to Carla Reyes, a 38-year-old journalist with The Beacon, known for defying Ohio's elite. Carla promised to air it, her voice crackling with defiance. Elijah felt a spark of victory, the recording a flare to reignite Crestwood's fight. He hid the phone under his bunk, believing Carla's broadcast could free Tanya, save Maya, and honor Troy. That spark was a cruel illusion. At dawn, the cell block's silence broke, footsteps echoing like thunder. 3 inmates, hulking figures, with tattoos of White Dawn symbols, cornered Elijah, their eyes glinting with Travis's orders. They swung shivs, their blades flashing in the fluorescent glow. Elijah's military training surged, his bruised fists blocking a strike, his elbow cracking one inmate's jaw. Blood sprayed, the cell a chaos of grunts and steel. Elijah ducked a second shiv, slamming the attacker against the bars, but the third inmate's blade grazed his side, fire searing his flesh. Guards, slow to respond, finally intervened, dragging the inmates away, their smirks mirroring Travis's loyalists. Elijah collapsed, his side bleeding, his ribs screaming. But he'd survived, the phone intact. Carla's broadcast aired that evening, the recording played on national news, Elijah's voice cutting through Crestwood's martial law. Protests flared across Ohio, thousands marching in Columbus, their signs demanding justice for black voters. Social media exploded, hashtags reviving Elijah's name, Crestwood's black community finding a digital voice. Elijah, bandaged in the jail's infirmary, watched on a smuggled tablet, his heart pounding. The recording was a beacon, exposing Travis's prison ties, Dunham's corruption, and the hate group's shadow. He believed the tide was turning, that Maya and Jamal would heal, that Tanya would walk free. That belief was a house of glass. shattered by Travis's wrath. At midnight, the jail's alarms blared, lights flickering as boots stormed the halls. Travis's men, 6 mercenaries in stolen guard uniforms, breached the cell block, their rifles trained on Elijah. They knew his location, the sympathetic guards' trust betrayed by a mole in the prison staff. Elijah's pulse raced. The inmates, attack a prelude to this execution. He grabbed the phone, diving under the bunk as bullets tore through the cell's bars. The mercenaries shouted, their voices thick with slurs, promising to end Elijah's fight. He crawled to a vent, its grate, loose from years of neglect, and pried it open, his side wound tearing with each move. The tunnel beyond was a claustrophobic maze, its air rank with mold. Elijah squeezed through, the mercenaries' flashlights sweeping behind, their curses fading. The tunnel led to a sewer, its ankle-deep water icy, but Elijah pushed forward, emerging in a Columbus alley, his body trembling, blood soaking his shirt. He checked the phone, finding a message from Samuel, urgent and grim. Carla Reyes had been assassinated, a sniper's bullet through her apartment window, hours after the broadcast. The recording was buried, major networks pulling it under pressure from Dunham's allies, a media blackout erasing Elijah's truth. His knees buckled, the alley's brick walls spinning. Carla's death, the mercenaries' raid, and the blackout were Travis's cruelest strike, a symphony of destruction to silence him. Maya and Jamal's hospital beds, Tanya's cell, and Troy's sacrifice flashed in Elijah's mind, each loss a weight crushing his spirit. The safe deposit key, still in his sock, was a mocking relic, its data useless without a platform. Crestwoods, protests once a roar, were stifled by martial law, Ohio's governor tightening the noose. Elijah's badge, a symbol of hope, was a death sentence, drawing Travis's fire. He limped toward a payphone, his vision blurring, to warn Samuel. The alley's shadows offered no safety, only a fleeting pause. Travis's machine had anticipated his every move, the mole's betrayal a mirror of the church's, the FBI's, Marcus's. Elijah's fight had cost him everything, his family broken, his allies dead or jailed. Yet Marissa's dream, Maya's, text burned in his chest. He'd find a new way, expose the governor's race fraud, or die in the attempt. The payphone's dial tone was a lifeline, but each ring felt like a countdown to the end. Elijah Brooks limped through Columbus's outskirts, the sewer's rancid stench clinging to his torn clothes, his side wound bleeding beneath a makeshift bandage. Carla Reyes's assassination, the prison ambush, and Crestwood's martial law had crushed Elijah's fight, leaving Maya and Jamal's poisoned bodies, Tanya's cell, and Marissa's dream in tatters. The safe deposit key, pressed against his ankle, was a fading ember, its ledger fragments useless without a platform. Leonard Travis's machine had painted Elijah a terrorist, his badge a death warrant. Samuel Tate's warning, whispered over. A payphone urged one last gambit: infiltrate Travis's mansion, expose his empire. Elijah's body screamed, his ribs cracked, his vision blurred, but Troy's sacrifice, Carla's courage, fueled him. Travis's estate, a sprawling fortress on Crestwood's Hill, loomed under a moonless sky, its iron gates guarded by cameras. Elijah, guided by Samuel's intel, slipped through a drainage pipe, its slime coating his hands. The mansion's grounds were a maze of hedges, patrolled by mercenaries with White Dawn tattoos. Elijah's military training steadied him, his steps silent as he scaled a servant's entrance, prying open a window. Inside, polished marble gleamed, portraits of Crestwood's elite staring down. Elijah's heart pounded, the key's weight. A reminder of Maya's text, "Don't give up." He found Travis's study, a wood-paneled sanctum, its desk littered with files on Senator Claire Dunham and the governor's race. Elijah rigged a hidden camera, its feed streaming to a secure server. Samuel had set up. He waited, crouched behind a curtain, as Travis entered with 2 aides, their voices low. Elijah activated the camera, capturing Travis's confession. Voter fraud, hate group funds, a plan to rig Ohio's elections for decades. The live feed hit the Beacon's site, shared by activists, its views spiking to millions. Crestwood's streets roared, protests paralyzing the town. 10,000 strong, their chants shaking City Hall. Elijah's chest swelled, Marissa's dream alive in the digital tide. He believed he'd won, Travis's empire exposed, Tanya's freedom near. That belief was a snare. The study's door slammed shut, a trap sprung. Travis, his face twisted, with rage stepped forward, a pistol gleaming in his hand. He'd known Elijah was coming, the mole from the FBI sting leaking Samuel's plan. Travis sneered, revealing his final play. A toxin rigged in Crestwood's water supply set to poison black neighborhoods, framed as Elijah's terrorist act. The aides activated a screen, showing vats in a warehouse, green liquid pulsing through. Pipes? Elijah's blood froze, Maya and Jamal's poisoning a mere test. Travis laughed, his slurs cutting like blades, vowing to crush Crestwood's black soul. Elijah lunged, but a mercenary tackled him, pinning his arms. The camera knocked loose. Travis aimed the pistol, his finger tightening. Elijah twisted, kicking the mercenary's knee, breaking free as the shot fired, the bullet tearing through his thigh. Pain exploded, blood pooling, but Elijah crawled to the camera, restarting the feed. The confession resumed, Travis's words damning him, the toxin's truth broadcast to millions. Protesters flooded Crestwood squares, their signs demanding Travis's arrest, the governor's office reeling. Elijah's vision swam, his thigh afire, but he staggered to his feet, the mercenary unconscious. Travis fired again, the bullet grazing Elijah's arm, but Elijah dove behind the desk, grabbing a paperweight. He hurled it, cracking Travis's wrist, the pistol clattering. Travis fled, his aides scattering, the mansion's alarms blaring. Elijah stumbled after, blood trailing, his phone buzzing with Samuel's text. Get to the warehouse. The toxin was real, its release minutes away. Elijah drove a stolen car, his hands slick, Crestwood's lights a blur. The warehouse, a hulking shadow by the river, was unguarded. Travis's men focused on the protests. Elijah broke in, finding the vats, their pipes hissing. He followed the control panel's wires, his fingers trembling, and cut the main valve, the toxin's flow halting. The vats stilled, Crestwood's water safe, thousands spared. Elijah collapsed, his thigh wound gushing, his body failing. Sirens wailed, police swarming, but the broadcast had done its work. Travis's confession viral, his empire cracking. Elijah's relief was fleeting. As medics lifted him, a news alert flashed. Travis's allies had spun the toxin as Elijah's plot. Doctored footage showing him at the warehouse, a terrorist caught red-handed. The lie spread, drowning the confession, Crestwood's protests faltering under martial law's grip. Elijah's eyes closed, the stretchers sway, pulling him under, his badge a curse. Travis had escaped, his shot a parting gift, his allies, framing Elijah as the poisoner. The warehouse's hum faded, Samuel's text a distant echo. Maya and Jamal's hospital beds, Tanya's cell, loomed in Elijah's mind, their safety uncertain. The safe deposit key, still in his sock, was a mocking weight, its data lost to Travis's lies. Crestwood's black community, battered by raids, clung to the broadcast, but the frame-up was a masterstroke. Travis's machine unyielding. Elijah's military training, his fight for Marissa's dream, had stopped the toxin, but at what cost? He'd saved lives, exposed Travis, but the war raged on. Police radios crackled, their voices thick with slurs, as Elijah was loaded into an ambulance. Travis's escape was a promise of more pain, the toxin's frame up, a noose tightening. Elijah's pulse weakened, his blood soaking the stretcher, but a faint vow burned. He'd rise, protect his family, end Travis's reign. The ambulance's siren wailed, Columbus's lights a haze, the fight far from over. Elijah Brooks woke in a haze, his thigh wound a throbbing fire. The ambulance's sterile hum replaced by the soft creak of a wooden floor. Crestwood's war had nearly claimed him. Leonard Travis's bullet, the toxin's frame up, and the viral confession, a whirlwind of betrayal and hope. Maya and Jamal's poisoned bodies, Tanya's arrest and the black community's battered spirit weighed on Elijah, Marissa's dream of justice a fragile thread. He lay in a safe house, a modest farmhouse 20 miles from Crestwood, its curtains, drawn against Ohio's winter dawn, Samuel Tate, his 60-year-old mentor, had orchestrated the rescue, allies smuggling Elijah from the ambulance before police could chain him. The safe deposit key still in his sock was a silent vow, its ledger fragments a spark to reignite the fight. Elijah's body protested, his ribs cracked, his shoulder festering, but Samuel's steady voice anchored him. Federal agents, spurred by the confession broadcast, had raided Travis's network, arresting Senator Claire Dunham and her aides, their voter fraud exposed. Crestwood's martial law wavered, protests swelling despite the governor's decrees. The Beacon ran daily exposés, Carla Reyes's death a martyr's call, her colleagues amplifying Elijah's truth. Yet Travis remained a ghost, his escape from the mansion a taunt, his allies in the White Dawn coalition circling like vultures. Elijah's heart ached for Maya and Jamal. Recovering in a Columbus hospital, Tanya still caged by false charges. He rose, wincing, and joined Samuel at a scarred kitchen table, maps and burner phones scattered like battle plans. Samuel proposed a secret voter drive, a shadow campaign to flip Crestwood's council, restoring black voices Travis had silenced. Elijah nodded, the plan a lifeline to honor Marissa, to free Tanya, to protect his niece and nephew. They rallied Crestwood's black community, working through trusted pastors and organizers, meeting in basements and backyards. Volunteers, 300 strong, registered voters under false names, dodging checkpoints with coded signals. Elijah, presumed dead by Travis's machine, coordinated from the farmhouse, his voice a whisper on encrypted calls. The drive gained momentum, each registration a defiance of Travis's fraud. By week's end, 5,000 new voters, mostly black, were ready, their ballots poised to oust the council's corrupt majority. Elijah's chest swelled, the key's weight lighter, Marissa's dream pulsing in Crestwood's streets. The election, held under federal oversight, was a quiet revolution. Polls opened at dawn, lines stretching around City Hall, faces defiant despite police glares. Elijah, hidden in a van, watched live feeds, his bandages tight, his hope fragile. Results trickled in by dusk. The council flipped. 3 new black members elected, their platforms built on justice and reform. Crestwood's black community cheered, their voices a chorus against years of silence. Tanya's charges were dropped, the judge citing procedural errors, and she reunited with Maya and Jamal, their hospital room filled with tears. Elijah, still a fugitive, called Tanya, her voice a balm promising to bring him home. The victory was a beacon, Travis's empire crumbling, Dunham indicted, the hate group's funds frozen. Elijah believed he'd won, Crestwood's soul reclaimed, his family safe. That belief was a cruel veil hiding Travis's final act. Samuel's contacts reported whispers of Travis in hiding, plotting a comeback from a safe house in rural Ohio. Elijah's military training kicked in, his pain a fuel. He devised a sting, using the ledger's fragments to lure Travis. The farmhouse became a war room, Elijah and Samuel crafting a trap. They leaked false data claiming Elijah had a new drive, its files detailing White Dawn's leadership. The bait was sent through a double agent, a former Travis ally turned informant, promising a meeting in a Columbus warehouse. Elijah, presumed dead, was the ghost Travis wouldn't expect. Federal agents, cleansed of moles, agreed to the sting, their radios silent to avoid leaks. Elijah prepared, his wounds bandaged, a vest under his jacket, the key left with Samuel, as a failsafe. The warehouse, a cavern of steel and shadows, was rigged with cameras, their feeds streaming to the beacon. Elijah arrived at midnight, his steps unsteady, the air thick with oil and rust. Travis appeared, flanked by 4 mercenaries, his face gaunt but eyes blazing. He demanded the drive, his pistol drawn, unaware of the cameras. Elijah stalled, his voice calm, goading Travis into a rant. Travis obliged, boasting of his escape, the toxin's intent, and White Dawn's plan to seize Ohio's government. The confession streamed live, millions watching, Crestwood's protests reigniting, their chants shaking the night. Agents stormed, in their shouts a thunderclap, handcuffing Travis as he screamed slurs. His empire shattered. Elijah's knees buckled, relief flooding him, the sting a masterstroke. Travis's arrest was broadcast, his face a mask of defeat, Crestwood's black community dancing in the streets. Elijah, still a fugitive, slipped away, his wounds bleeding, believing the war was over. That belief was a final trap. Hours later, a package arrived at the Beacon, a manifesto from Travis leaked from his cell. Its pages, scrawled with hate, called for White Dawn to rise, a national hate group vowing to continue his work. The manifesto spread online. Its words a poison, inciting rallies in Ohio's cities, their torches a chilling echo of Crestwood's riots. Elijah, hidden in a new safe house, watched the news, his heart sinking. Travis's arrest was a victory, but his manifesto was a hydra, spawning new threats. Crestwood's council, now black-led, faced death threats, their homes vandalized. Maya and Jamal, discharged but weak, clung to Tanya, their eyes haunted. Elijah's badge, once a shield, was a legend. His presumed death a shield against Travis's allies. He met Samuel at dawn, the farmhouse's windows fogged, their faces grim. The voter drive had flipped the council, but the hate group's rise was a new war. Elijah vowed to fight, to protect his family, to honor Marissa. He planned to track White Dawn's leaders, using the ledger's fragments to expose their funds. The safe deposit key, returned by Samuel, was a talisman, its data a map to the next battle. Elijah stood, his wounds a dull ache, his resolve a fire. Crestwood's streets, alive with new voices, were worth defending. Tanya's call, Maya's laugh, fueled him. The manifesto's shadow loomed, but Elijah's fight was eternal, a promise to end hate's grip. He stepped into the winter. Light, the farmhouse's door creaking shut, Crestwood's horizon calling. The unseen badge reveals profound truths about resilience and systemic racism's enduring grip. Elijah Brooks's fight against Leonard Travis's corrupt empire shows that justice demands unyielding courage, even when betrayal and violence strike. His journey from a brutal racist attack to exposing voter fraud teaches that one voice can spark change, but systemic change requires collective action. Elijah's presumed death, a ruse to trap Travis, underscores strategic sacrifice, proving that outsmarting oppression often means playing its game. The voter drive flipping Crestwood's council highlights the power of community, showing that silenced voices can roar when united. Yet, Travis's manifesto, inciting a national hate group, warns that victories are fragile, racism's roots deep and persistent. Elijah's resolve, fueled by Marissa's dream, teaches that personal loss, family, safety, reputation cannot extinguish purpose. The story exposes racist systems, from gentrification to election rigging, urging us to confront uncomfortable truths. It challenges us to stand like Elijah against hate, to protect the vulnerable, and to build a future where justice isn't a dream, but a reality. The unseen badge inspires action, reminding us that every step, no matter how costly, moves the needle. As Elijah vows to fight White Dawn's rise, we're called to join the battle, to honor those who sacrifice for truth. What will you do to challenge racist systems in your world? Comment number 1. If you're inspired to act, hit like, subscribe and share to spread this story's fire. Thank you for joining Elijah's fight. Here's to a world where justice prevails,